First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Eternal Insiders. My name is Luke. Of course, I'm always your host, and I'm joined by one of the men set to co-headline Eternal 80, fighting against Anthony Drilich for the vacant flyweight title at the HBF Stadium in Perth, Western Australia. It is Frank the Tank Jankowski, kind enough to join me here and share some of his time. Frank, first time on the show, brother. Pleasure to have you here. How is everything going for you over in sunny Perth, Western Australia, in the lead up to your first title fight, man?
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, it's been a long camp. Been training hard, pushing hard. Yeah, getting the runs in, 5 rounds. Yeah, ready to go.
Ready to go, man, no doubt. Yeah, there's a lot of buzz around this fight, of course. Of course, a big title fight, the vacant flyweight title. I did want to ask you, man, I've got a couple of questions for you, but the first thing I want to know, how did you first find out that this fight was going to be a possibility? Of course, you last fought at Eternal 73. Can you give us a little bit of insight about how you first found out this was going to be a possibility? Who told you? How did this all come about for you, man?
Yeah, so we went to New Zealand in June and we did like the Oceania. And then when I came back, like, yeah, I'd sort of had a feeling like, yeah, well, I was going to fight. Like, yeah, I had a few names and then then his name come up and then, yeah.
So who was the first one to tell you that? Is this something that came from your coaches? Were you contacted by the Eternal Brass? Who was the one to give you this news that this was going to be a possibility?
My coach, Stephen Walton. Yeah.
Yeah, and no doubt you put your hand straight up for that one. Yeah, you said there was a couple of names sort of being bounced around, but when you found out you're fighting for the title, no doubt you said yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool, man. I did want to ask you too, have you sort of given much thought to the fact that obviously this is the vacant flyweight title? Of course, the man that previously held that title was Stephen Erceg. Stephen, of course, last fought and won the title back at Eternal 73. Of course, gone on to fight in the UFC now. Fellow Perth legend. Is that sort of lost on you, the fact that, it's a little ironic? You fought on that same card at Eternal 73, and we'll get into that fight, but you're now going in for that title, the same title that Stephen Erceg fought for, defended a couple of times, moving on to the UFC, fellow Perth boy. What does that sort of mean to you to be able to follow in his footsteps like that?
Yeah, great. Like, yeah, Steve's an absolute beast. A few weeks back, I trained with him. Got some rounds in what was good. Yeah.
Cool.
Such a good dude. Yeah. So slick everywhere. Yeah.
He is such a well-rounded dude. I mean, what's that experience for you like, man? It's got to be invaluable, right? I mean, mixing up with one of the best. Of course, we know Steven's gone to the UFC, entered the top 15 straight away. I mean, we already knew what his skill set was like, but proved it to the world. What was that sort of like, being able to get a couple of rounds with Steve? He's a bit of a man of mystery sometimes, but can you give us a bit of insight as to what it was like to sort of tangle with him and learn from one of the best?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, yeah, it's good just going to different gyms, different bodies. Yeah. Yeah, he's such a good guy. Yeah, it was good.
He's a great dude, man. There's a lot of Perth talent, of course, one of the biggest hotbeds that we've got here in Australia, and you're following in those footsteps, so it's very cool to see. Now, of course, just on that, you do have a big fan base in Perth, Western Australia, but I just want to ask tell us a little bit about how you first got into this game. For those that don't know, can you paint a little bit of a picture for us in terms of how you first sort of got into this game? When did you first decide that MMA was going to be your professional career up until the point it is now? Can you give us a little bit of a timeline as to where this all started for you up until now, coming to your first title fight?
So me and my twin brother Ryan, he's fought on the same cards a few times.
Of course.
We started in judo in primary school and then did kickboxing through high school. But then we've gone to MMA through the Ultimate Fighter Smashes, Australia versus UK, where Robert Whittaker won that season. And then a few years after that, so 10 years would be December, we started at a gym now. It used to be Mac 1, and it was under Happy Hess with Steve, but then he changed it to Wolf's Den about 2.5 years ago. And then, so I've been training MMA for nearly 10 years and then started fighting the start of 2018, so nearly 6 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Still so young, right? I mean, 24, 25 years old at this stage of your career?
25, yeah.
25 now. So was there anything in terms of any martial arts prior to that? I mean, you got into MMA, but were you doing anything like maybe as a kid? Was there any karate or anything like that in sort of the lead up? Like how early did the journey of just martial arts start for you?
Yeah, young. Started in judo, I think, about 8 or 7 in grade 3. And then our parents put us in the comps, even though we didn't like it. Used to cry. Yeah, I used to get beat up. And then when we were about 14, then, then we started enjoying it, then started in MMA.
Yeah, it's a bit of that sort of learning curve. I can share those sentiments, man. I mean, I wasn't sort of doing judo. I did the sort of the base level of Dane Cook style martial arts and karate back when I was a kid. And I've been there. I've been in those tournaments when you're a kid and you're getting beaten up. I was not really beaten up. I mean, there wasn't really contact, but you lose your own handle as a kid, so I can certainly appreciate that, man. Didn't go to the levels you're at now, but I can certainly empathize with that situation. So very cool to see how far you've come. Now, just on that, man, before we sort of get into the last fight that you did have, wanted to talk a little bit about the skill set that you sort of possess, just for the people that don't know about you. Of course, in your last fight, you showed a very versatile game. Of course, on the feet, you showed a lot of everything, good hands, but I mean, there was a lot of other techniques, a lot of spinning techniques, knees, flying knees, T kicks up the middle, but then also taking it to the ground. So you're showing off a very strong grappling game. Do you have a preference as to where you sort of like the game to go? I mean, you're still so young in your career. Do you feel more comfortable on the feet? Do you feel more comfortable on the ground? Or does it not matter to you where the fights go in general?
I like to fight wherever it goes. I like kickboxing, and then I'd say my wrestling is my strongest aspects. But just my creativity, just going on the fly. Because with MMA, you have to be good basically everywhere.
No, of course, you do have to have a very well-rounded skill set. I mean, of course, you were showing off the grappling and everything. It's fantastic to have that base, but equally competent on the feet. Showing off a bit of a chin, mind you, at Eternal 73 with Matty Gibson, of course. That was a fantastic fight. Now, that fight ended in a split decision win for yourself. Towards the end of that fight, I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but in that moment, how confident were you that you got your hand raised after that split decision win against Matty Gibson at Eternal 73?
Yeah, quite confident. I know I had the first 2 rounds. The third round, he took it. And it was tough. I had like a big adrenaline dump, and then after the first round, couldn't feel my legs, but just kept pushing through.
I was going to say, just in that third round, I mean, the commentary team was sort of giving props to both of you guys that you both look sort of so fresh. But if I do say so, I think in that fight, like Matty Gibson looked like he was just that little bit sharper. Of course, you'd done enough early in the rounds. Were you feeling that, as you just said, a bit of an adrenaline dump sort of towards the end of that round? Because you did just look that touch a little bit off as the sort of the seconds died off, albeit you did secure that takedown in the last minute, to sort of gain back control of the fight.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
How would you sort of rate? How would you sort of rate your cardio overall? I mean, the flyweights are sort of known for having sort of great cardio and all that sort of thing. Now, you fought a number of times for Eternal. I think you only fought one time not fighting for Eternal for both your amateur and your professional fights. Do you consider your cardio a strong part of your game?
Yeah, definitely. And definitely this fight, I've been smashing out the runs, at 5.5s, going to be able to go that 5.5s and push that pace.
Love to hear it, man. Of course, at Eternal 73, we fought in Perth, Western Australia. Of course, your hometown, representing the Wolves Den. Big Frank the Tank chants were going on in the crowd, which is very cool to hear. I don't think there's anywhere else. I've spoken about this ad nauseum plenty of times, that there's nowhere like Perth, Western Australia when it comes to showing out for the guys, showing up to, give the hometown support. What did that feel like in the moment? Are you hearing those chants in the moment? You always hear different things from different people. I don't hear the crowd. Are you aware at that time that those Frank the Tank chants were going on? Because it was rocking the whole time you were in the cage there.
Yeah, definitely. It gives you a good good push. So I remember it was like the second round, and just like you could hear it just like blaring Frank the Tank, and then sort of push the action as soon as I hear the chants. Sort of gives me a good boost.
I've no doubt it was. It was giving me a boost, man. I've been to 2 cards, and that was my first one, Eternal 73 over there in Perth, of course, before that UFC card that we had over there. So that was fantastic. I mean, the HBF Stadium is just the perfect venue. Pleased to see it going back there. I mean, I haven't been to any Gold Coast shows. Went to the recent one in Sydney, but from what I've been told, Perth is where it's at. Of course, all the talent coming out of Perth, and you're sort of that next in line there. Very cool to see. So I'm very much looking forward to this card. Now, I want to talk about obviously the opponent you got coming up. Ironically, your next opponent, Anthony Drilich, that you're fighting against for this vacant flyweight title, he's coming off a split decision win himself. So both you guys coming off split decision wins, coming in fighting for this title. What do you make of Anthony's opponent? Do you get much of a chance to study him? Do you leave that sort of thing to your coaches? How do you think you match up in terms of the skill set against your opponent for Eternal 80?
Yeah, Anthony's tough dude. I've seen a few of his fights. Strong hands, strong grappling. Yeah, I'm excited for this fight. Yeah, it's going to be a good war. See how it goes.
It's going to be
ready to go out there and put it all on the line.
I'm very much looking forward to it, man, and I think there's a lot of people definitely looking forward to this one. Like, when you look at your opponent, do you see any sort of distinct advantages for you? When you go up against Anthony? Of course, you said that you appreciate the fact that he's a well-rounded fighter. You, of course, yourself, very well-rounded fighter. Where is the danger, do you think, for your opponent when he comes up against you?
Yeah, he's got danger in his hands, power hands. He's BJJ, black belt. So yeah, basically everywhere. I'm looking to use my reach, speed.
Yeah, so you think the reach and the speed might be the advantage for you?
Yeah, definitely.
I love it, man. Now, we're very much looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. Now, I wanted to talk about, sort of the skill experience. I mean, you've had a lot of amateur fights, Anthony himself, of course. But in terms of the pro ranks, Anthony has the edge in terms of the pro fights in his corner. 6 fights to your 3 at this point in your career. I'm sure you're very confident coming to this fight nonetheless, but can you take a little bit of extra, I guess, inspiration from a guy, another fellow Perth native, Quillan Soulkilled? Of course, HBF Stadium, he went in there, 3 wins to his name, coming up against an experienced Blake Donnelly, won the title in spectacular fashion, against an opponent that's much more experienced than he is, winning that first round. Can you look at something like that? Another guy, Perth, HBF Stadium, the lesser travelled opponent coming against the experienced guy. Can you look at something like that and take inspiration from a guy like Quillan coming into your first title fight?
Yeah, definitely. Like Quillan, being like in the amateur MMA scenes, he's had heaps, and then my amateur record 7-2, and then the first time they had the fights at the HBF, I was on that card in 2019. So this would be my 9th fight at that venue. So I reckon I've got the experience wise for like at that venue, and then I say in fights in general, like amateur as well as pro. Yeah, this would be like my 13th MMA fight. So.
Yeah, so of course, I guess people sort of don't necessarily look at it from that perspective. A lot of people don't pay attention to the amateur records, but you're absolutely right. It's not like this is like your 4th fight coming into. I mean, you've had a lot of amateur fights and you've had a lot of success sort of coming in to your pro career. So you've set yourself up just nicely. Of course, fighting for Eternal MMA, as we said, all but one of your fights, one amateur fight you fought outside of Eternal. But I mean, you're an Eternal bred man. I mean, what does it mean to be able to go out, the production of Eternal MMA, fighting on UFC Fight Pass and you're fighting on that main card? It's got to be a very cool feeling, got to be a cool experience to spend so much of your amateur and your pro career fighting for Eternal MMA.
Yeah, definitely. It's the best promotion in Australia and New Zealand. They put on the best fights. UFC Fight Pass, can get all my friends and family watch it. Can watch it afterwards, pretty easy. Yeah.
Of course you can. No, we all look forward to watching the fights live and then getting to see them back. And of course, HBF Stadium, I wanted to ask you about this one this time around. We mentioned the Frank the Tank chants were big this last time at Eternal 73. What can we expect coming into this fight, man? A lot of people will be watching on UFC Fight Pass. No doubt they're going to be packing the rafters back at the HBF Stadium. What can we expect in terms of the turnout and the support for you? Can we expect more Frank the Tank chants? What are you thinking it's going to be like compared to your last fight there for Eternal 73, coming into this one for Eternal 80?
Yeah, this would probably be the biggest one. Hopefully have, even more supporters than last time. So, blow the roof off.
I've no doubt it'll blow the roof off, man. Again, can't talk enough about HBF Stadium. The Perth crowd is absolutely rocking, and we absolutely can't wait for it. There's no doubt that you guys are going to put an absolute show. And, of course, for yourself, hopefully for you coming out with a win. Did have just a couple more questions before you go, man. Of course, you're a Perth boy. You're representing the city of Perth. Wolves Den, of course, that you fight out of. This is going to be your first title fight, man. Pretty early in your career. What would it mean to you to be able to go into the HBF Stadium in Perth, Western Australia, and bring that title back for your city of Perth and for your gym at the Wolves Den there?
Yeah, I mean, everything. I put in all this hard work, 10 years into this game. Yeah, time to show off.
Time to show off and time to show out, man. Absolutely looking forward to this one. It's going to be an absolute cracker. I don't know if you're the sort of guy to give any predictions on the fight, man. Can you give us maybe a prediction of how you think the fight's going to go? Is there a certain way that you envision yourself winning? What do you think's going down at Eternal 80 for this fight?
Yeah, hopefully like a late finish, round 4, round 5. But if it goes to decision, I'm ready for that.
A late finish, so you're not the type that wants to get it done early. You want to get your money's worth and scrap in there a little bit, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
We absolutely love to hear that, man. We're looking forward to it. Of course, Quillan Soulkill defending his title on that same card. Going to be a huge card in Perth, Western Australia at the HBF Stadium. If you haven't got your tickets, you can get them at eternalmma.com. Make sure you get on that. And if you're not, you're tuning into UFC Fight Pass, live and exclusive, of course. Frank, so much. We thank you for your time, man. Absolute privilege to have you here on the show. All the best at the HBF Stadium for that first title challenge for yourself, man, October 28th. And look forward to seeing you on the other side, man. Thank you very much.
Sweet. Cheers, Luke. Appreciate it.
You're the man, brother. Thank you.